Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and I'm telling on myself today. I have been reviewing indie books for 3.5 years, and in the early days of my review career, I made some mistakes. I have learned some things, and I have made other videos talking about the awkward things that authors do online that could ruin their brand, the horrible things that reviewers have done that may be unethical or wrong or just kind of weird and not helping you. So I feel that it's only fair to be fully transparent, pull back the curtain, and reveal some of my own mistakes now, looking back several years after the fact. And this should be fun. So this first one is one that I kind of low-key still struggle with today, but it was really bad when I was first getting started. And that is saying yes to books that I wasn't actually all that interested in. In the very, very early days, when I had first gotten that first review request, I was thrilled at the idea that anyone wanted me to review their book at all. Shami Sova was the first, and it took a while for my reputation for reviewing to grow. Shami sent me that email, I believe it was in somewhere around mid-December of 2018. It was 2018. Oof. And I think I didn't get my next one until at least February of 2019. So there was a good 5 to 6 weeks in between those two review emails, and early on it was I kind of wanted to say yes to anything just because I wasn't getting a lot back then. Nowadays, a single tweet making its rounds, or if I post an indie video that gets slightly more views than normal, I could get 3 reviews in a day. So I've had to learn how to say no. But early on, what I would do was basically I would go into a review request email kind of assuming that it was going to be a yes unless I saw giant red flags that screamed no. And this was not a smart idea because I hate having to tell an author that I'm DNFing and not reviewing their work. It's not fun. And once I realized that it's a lot nicer and feels a lot easier to say no to the request than to have to inform the author that I'm DNFing after the fact, I got a lot better at going in saying basically that it's an auto no unless I have seen something in the review request that makes me particularly interested in it. And I kind of keep a running list in the back of my head of things that I've been interested in lately, or genres or tropes in general that I'm always going to usually like. So if you ever see me tweeting something oh, I'm so depressed that I don't have more monster romance on my list, that's me kind of keeping track of what do I want lately? Can I put it out into the universe and get some stuff back? And I've gotten better at it. Now, of course, there still is the whole issue of I don't like saying no, but I have gotten over the fear that the indie author is automatically going to hate me for saying no. Most of the time, with very rare exceptions, they accept it with grace and move on, and it's not a big deal. So I've gotten over that idea of I'm going to say no and they're going to think I'm horrible. But early on, it was, it was bad. This next one is actually a very recent one, and that is I didn't realize that I should be checking my spam folder for review requests. I've been accepting review requests primarily through email this entire time, and for some reason, the idea of checking my spam inbox just in case just never registered in my brain for some reason. And the other day, about maybe a week ago at this point, I was looking through my spam inbox for something else. I think I had been waiting on one of those auto-generated emails and it hadn't come, so I just on a whim was looking through and I saw emails with review requests in the header and I was like, oh no. And I clicked and sure enough, it was a review request. I went searching a little bit deeper and I found another one, which meant that this has already happened more than once in the recent past. The problem is that your spam folder has an expiration date. It only keeps the emails in there for 30 days. I've only recently started checking in there. So it is fully possible that there are countless review requests that I never saw because I never checked in there. So if on the off chance that you sent me a review request, any indie author watching this, I know indie authors are a very large portion of my viewer base, and I never responded, that's probably what happened. I always respond, even if it's a no. I don't do radio silence for no's. So if you send me an email, maybe years ago at this point, I don't know. Like I said, it hadn't occurred to me. I am sorry. It was not done with intent or malicious forethought. You are free to send me that review request again. I am now regularly checking my spam inbox. Like pretty much every time like I go to check my email regularly for the day, I'll also do like a quick read through. Cause I just feel so bad at the idea that there could have been literally dozens at this point, depending. I don't know how the algorithms decide things, and I feel absolutely awful about it. And the idea that there are indie authors that think I'm one of those reviewers that just won't reply to indie requests is like breaking my heart. So I really hope if that happened to anyone that they see this or my tweet about it from earlier and like, if not send the review request again, at least then just don't feel like I was ignoring you on purpose. And right now that's really all I can do about it. This next one is very recent, and I'm really, really sorry to this author that I am just now rectifying this, but I forget constantly to actually put the books on my review list. I have a Goodreads shelf that reads to review, and that's how I can remember things. I have the books that have not been read at all, and then once I have the Goodreads rating and that review written, I then keep it on the list as a reminder that I still have to film this review. Now, it's happened before that some authors will send me review requests before the book is on Goodreads, or they're so new they don't know how to put it on Goodreads. Side note, it's always a smarter idea to have it on Goodreads before you present it to me, because if it's not published yet, I literally can't give you any written reviews. So if you send a book to me and it's not on Goodreads and it's not published yet on Amazon, I can give you a video. That will happen. But in all honesty, while I love making videos and I love that people love me talking about their books, you're gonna get more legwork, you're gonna get more help in marketing out of a written review on Goodreads and Amazon than you are out of any of my videos. So make sure you have that set up. But regardless, this case, the author actually did have it on Goodreads, and for some reason, I did not immediately put it on my list. I've always argued with myself, do I put it on the minute I say yes to the request? Do I put it on when I actually get the book? Do I want it to be my own review list, or do I just want it to be my review list in general? And it's been a whole thing. I can't decide either way. I seem to flip back every 6 months. But I had not put this on immediately, and 3 days after, not even, maybe even less than that, after this author had sent me that review request, it might have actually been like a day or two actually, my entire world went to hell. I won't get into it because it's a whole thing, but if you've been around my channel and you know what 2021 was like, you can probably guess the big thing that happened. Regardless, my brain shut off. I went on indefinite hold for all review requests. I think I only ever grandfathered in authors that I loved, because that's all I could handle doing reviews for, was books that I was like absolutely sure were going to be 5 stars. And this author didn't even get on my list until January of this year, when I was looking through and I was reorganizing all of my books and I was making sure I had everything put together. And that's when I realized that I had this 7-month-old review request sitting in my inbox, never had gotten on my list. So I was like, crap. So I got it added onto the list, obviously. And then apparently forgot again, because when I would go back and I was trying to catch up on all of the reviews that I'd missed while on hold in 2021, I would look at the date they were added to the list. So I would see all these other books that were added in 2021 and think they were older, when in reality, this book was actually the oldest one, and I was still ignoring it. So while I was digging through to make sure I had everything caught up after the spam inbox thing, I went through and I was like, crap, I ignored this one again. And I'm like, okay, we're reading it now. We have to read it now. And I feel so bad. And the worst part is that it's not even a genre I read a lot, so I can't even give it the glowing 5 stars I wish I can, and I'm not gonna artificially inflate a review just because I feel bad. And thankfully this is an author that I have reviewed before, a short story before, so I have still given them some airtime on my channel. But David, I am so sorry. I did not intend for this to be a 1.5 year wait. And I'm working on getting better, and I probably just need to suck it up and do the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. I don't want to. I hate that software, but the system I have currently isn't working. I just gotta suck it up and do it that way, because I really don't want mistakes like these to keep happening. Okay, this next one might sound pretentious. I'm not sure, but stick with me. This next mistake is when I encourage, unintentionally, author habits that I know I shouldn't. I've mentioned it before on my channel, but because of the size of my following, I tend to get a lot of new authors. Really established indie authors, they already know they don't need me. So it tends to be authors at the beginning of their careers that send review requests to me at first. And I've learned that it's kind of a very steep learning curve for indie authors on what to do. And I keep making the mistake of, I don't want to make it awkward by telling them what they should be doing instead. So I let the bad decisions slide past. And I only recently realized, well, not too recently, that I'm not doing them any favors by not giving them a heads up. Like, one of the ones I found out after the fact was I had someone send me a review request through Goodreads, and I was mentioning that to someone else in the community, and they're like, oh no, authors can get banned off Goodreads for doing that. If someone else decides to report them for that DM, they can get banned. And I was like, oh crap. I don't want to encourage behavior that's gonna get someone banned. And other reviewers I've seen will flat out block authors for sending review requests in like their Twitter DMs. So I don't want to set a precedence for emerging indie authors who are still learning everything in this very steep learning curve. I don't want to accidentally give them the wrong message and then have them end up blocked by other reviewers or an entire site because I felt too awkward to step in and be like, hey, just FYI. I've gotten a lot better of being like, I accept review requests through my inbox. You can email me here, and kind of like gently redirecting to the place you should be sending review requests. I hope that it's coming across nice and helpful and not pretentious. The other thing that I accidentally encouraged was I have in the past let indie authors argue with me on things that in reality I should be holding strict boundaries. Like I did have an indie author that was like doing the whole asking for research is limiting writer freedom shtick, and I still accepted the review request, and I should not have, looking back. So that one was one that I had to get firmer on, and I'm really hoping this doesn't come across as pretentious. I don't think I'm that much more knowledgeable as a whole. If anything, this video should show to you how much I've been having to learn things over the course of this. But in general, I've learned that it's better for everyone if I kind of give a, hey, quick heads up, I'm not mad, but someone else could get mad. Maybe try this in the future to avoid it. It's a lot more helpful to people than just letting things happen because I feel awkward. Although it's still awkward, but I'll get over it eventually, maybe. This next one is part of the reason that I am so picky about what genres I work with these days, and that is the mistake of repeatedly getting world building facts wrong. Now, I've done this mostly with high fantasy. Trying to explain the world building of high fantasy in a review video never goes well for me. There was one author that sent me multiple review books set in the same high fantasy world but different aspects of it, and I must have bungled it every time. Messed up some aspect of the world building. It got to a point where I think almost after every review video I would get a DM from him being like, actually, and I'm like thinking to myself, why is she still sending me these? Apparently I suck. And it's part of the reason why I'm so picky about choosing any high fantasies, because the deep, deep lore and world building, it goes right over my head, and it's not helpful to the author for me to get things wrong in reviews. Now, the author hasn't sent me any more for review, and I'm not upset by that. That's probably for the best, if we're being honest. But if you have sent me a review request for high fantasy and I said no, just know that it was probably in your best interest because I probably would have gotten something wrong. And honestly, I've had a high fantasy sitting on my review list for so long because it's a 600-page chonker, and I already don't remember a lot about the world building from the first book. So I'm gonna have to be real careful about that one. I might have to wait for like a holiday break when I'm off work to like dedicate the time and laser focus in on it, because the likelihood of me screwing it up is it's so high. So we are ending this list of my worst mistakes as a reviewer with kind of a long story that comprises many different mistakes that I made early on my channel, all around one particular book that, looking back, if I hadn't caught in time and changed tracks, it could have forever altered the momentum of my channel in a way that I would not have wanted. So, early on, we're still in the early days of my channel, I am still saying yes to basically anything that doesn't have gigantic red flags. And I get this review request for a book that has the gigantic red flags, that I dislike the synopsis upon reading it. And I still say yes, because at the time I had been paying way more attention to BookTube and noticing how popular rant reviews are and how much attention they got. Specifically at the time, Sarah J. Maas was one of the popular ones to do a rant review on. And for some reason, I'm like, oh, a big angry review on a book I don't like much is going to get me more views. This was stupid of me. Mostly because I had a decent idea of who I am as a person, even at that point with my reading tastes. And I don't hate read. I genuinely don't like it. I don't really understand why other people do. I'm not saying that it's invalid. I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing. I'm literally saying I cannot comprehend why the act of reading a book you are not enjoying is somehow enjoyable in itself. I could see how a rant review is enjoyable to a certain extent, should be very cathartic, but I basically saw myself doing the same thing they were doing with Sarah J. Maas books with this book. And sure enough, I DNF'd like halfway through, I think. Pretty sure I had not made it to the 200-page mark by this point. And I didn't enjoy it, obviously. I didn't hate reading it. I was so angry, and part of it was for personal reasons that, again, I'm not going to get into because it might give you a tip off of what the book was. Last I checked, it did not have a very big following, did not have a very big reader base, even for an indie book. And I honestly can't even remember the title or the author at this point, so that's probably for the best. That way I can't accidentally leak it. But I did not inform the author that I had DNF'd because I was going to film a review anyway, because I was still caught up in that idea of doing the fun, edgy, clapback rant review that BookTube seemed to love at the time. And I filmed, I believe the footage got up to 20 minutes, more or less. And again, I had only read like less than 200 pages at this point. My reviews for full books that I have read cover to cover, some of which can get as long as 600, 700 to 800 words at one point, never exceeds 20 minutes. So the fact that I was ranting for that long about a book I had paused halfway through, I was apparently really caught up in the idea, and I remember getting exceedingly heated, and I think I might have actually yelled in the footage. And at one point I was also subtweeting, and I don't remember what exactly I tweeted, but I remember it was much more critical of a book than I usually get, at least for what it was. At this point on my channel, you might notice a trend of the books that I get hypercritical about, and it all tends to have very similar themes, namely using sexual assaults in ways that it should not be used in a book. This book did not have that. This book did not have any of the things that I have gotten hypercritical about books in the past. I had just decided to accept a review book that I did not like and do a rant review on it. And so I was subtweeting, which was also stupid of me. Yet another mistake. And someone, I think it was one of my mutuals at the time, I honestly don't remember. The vast majority of Twitter names, if we haven't interacted like 300 times, I forget. But they pointed out that subtweeting a book that I'd been sent for review wasn't fair to the indie authors that had sent me it, and also would be very anxiety-inducing and discouraging for other indie authors that had sent me books that I wasn't talking about. Kind of like when literary agents do like subtweets about the bad queries they get, and suddenly you're paranoid that like one of yours is on that list. And then I thought about it, and I thought it was even more stupid because I keep my Goodreads updated. So I'm never really subtweeting any book I'm reading because I keep my Goodreads updated. So you could see any of the books that I had been reading recently and keep up. Now, I think at that time I had taken it off my Goodreads before I tweeted, so I dodged that bullet at least. I kind of had one of those, oh, fuck. Like, what am I doing? Like, what was all of this? What was that review footage? What was even accepting this request? Like, I couldn't even claim that I had done it because I didn't want to say no. I knew exactly what I was doing when I said yes, and I don't even think I had edited the footage at that point, and I quickly deleted it, scrubbed it off of my phone, my computer, all of it, and then informed the author, who, yes, did realize it was his book I'd been tweeting about. Not my proudest moment. And I explained, here's the thing, I can't continue. I'm not posting the review. And he was actually a good sport about it. And I've moved on. I've never reviewed any other book from him, and I don't blame him for not wanting to come back. But that experience helped me set some of the rules that I use going forward. And it's actually because of that experience that I have the rules set in place that have made it so that I have never given a 1-star to a review book, because I have a strict, if I'm not enjoying it, I DNF, and if I DNF, I don't film a review, because it's not fair to the author to do a full review on a partial reading of a book, because for all I know, there could be something later on in that story that would have changed my rating if I'd continued. So as a result, because I DNF books that are looking to be 1 stars, I have never actually given a 1-star review, and I'm very proud of that. I don't see that changing anytime soon. It would have to be a very rare lineup of occurrences, I think. But for the most part, this is the thing I'm most shamed about, that I temporarily got caught up in the idea of following a booktube trend to the extent that I would seek out to review a thing for the express purpose of being sassy and hypercritical of it. I genuinely don't know who that person was. I don't think I was going through a hard time. at that point. I mean, this had to have been sometime during 2019. I don't think anything was going wrong then, so I can't even fall back on life was hell. I just got caught up in something I shouldn't have been caught up in, and thankfully, I never made the biggest mistake of actually posting that rant review to my channel, because if I had become known for rant reviewing indie books, it probably would have killed that part of my channel dead. I can't imagine any indie author with an ounce of self-respect would want to send a review request to a reviewer that would be posting 20-minute rant reviews on a book they didn't finish just to slam dunk on it. And thankfully, I think BookTube as a whole has moved a little bit past rant reviews. Not entirely. There are still some booktubers that make snarking on books their whole shtick, but it's not as prevalent as a video type across the entirety of the community anymore. And that is to the community's benefit. That was not a kind time for us as a whole. And I am very ashamed of getting caught up in it, even if most of my getting caught up in it was behind the scenes and quickly changed, because I love the connections to the indie community that I have now. I have discovered the love and joy of getting to repeatedly be like, the 5-star thing has happened, and I'm so excited because I wanted this thing to happen in this, the 6th book in this series, like that kind of thing. And developing a network of connections with indie authors where I get the press packages, and I have been in the acknowledgments of books, and I have been in, my reviews have been quoted in books, and none of this would have been a thing had I decided to fully jump in on rant reviews. So I got very lucky that I steered back on the right track in time before I, honestly ruined what was happening at the time, before I ruined a very tiny budding aspect of my reviewing career. So I am sorry to that author. I doubt they're watching this. I can't imagine they kept watching me after that. But to any authors that never got a request from me because I didn't think to check my spam box, to that one author, or any authors that have waited up 6 months, I think some might have waited almost a year while I had to get my life back together, I am sorry. I do genuinely love this. To that one high fantasy author that's still going to be waiting for a while, well, we've talked. They know my feelings. They think it's funny that I'm willing to suffer through a high fantasy book just for the disabled disaster bisexual. But in general, I'm sure that I'm going to realize in another 3 years' time that there were some other mistakes that I've made. And I hope that I can weather those and change moving forward. But in general, I am happy for where my channel is at. I'm happy that I've grown. I'm happy that I have all of this extra knowledge that I can give out to other indie authors that are just starting, or other reviewers that are just getting started. If you have any questions on my process, please let me know. And again, if you have sent me a review request and I never responded, that is not my style. That is not in my character. I probably just was not checking my spam inbox at that time. Please feel free to resend it. I will read through it and give you an answer one way or another. But with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.